You're watching Channel Japan. Next up is the Project Japan.
And this time we have the latter half of our report from the Nikkei Asian Conference on Communicable Diseases.
I know the first part was mainly centered on what one doctor saw when he went to an area suffering from an Ebola outbreak. But what about this time?
Yes, this time we'll be introducing what companies are doing to eradicate communicable diseases.
And what exactly are they doing?
Well, in Japan, there are common practices that can help prevent the spread of communicable diseases that aren't carried out in some of the industrializing countries. Can you guess what they are?
Let me think. I know, hand washing.
Yes, you're right. Hand washing has been a common practice among people in Japan from long ago, especially when coming in from the outside. And this hand washing practice is said to be contributing significantly to prevent the spread of communicable diseases.
So what are the benefits of hand washing?
Well, it's effective in stopping diseases from being transmitted through contact, and often an infected person will cover their mouth with their hands when sneezing or coughing, and then disease can be spread through contact with those hands.
True. Well, if viruses are on a person's hand and that person touches a doorknob or the hanging straps of trains or switches, and then the diseases could spread. So it's something we're all at risk of every day.
Yes, you're right. And viruses and bacteria can travel from hands to the mouth and nasal membranes, and it's just one way diseases can spread.
So washing your hands is quite effective.
It is. And they say by teaching proper hand washing methods in developing countries, it may be possible to protect 1 million children from communicable diseases. And it's just one of the preventive measures discussed at the conference, so take a look.
The Project Japan. Communicable diseases are diseases caused by pathogenic microorganisms invading the body. Around the world, 60% of deaths of children under 5 years old are said to be linked to communicable diseases. How should we deal with this threat? At the end of April, a conference attended by a wide range of experts from industry, government, and academia in Japan and abroad was held in Tokyo. The Nikkei Asian Conference on Communicable Diseases marked its 3rd year this year.
There are diseases like influenza that even the healthiest person will contract. With all communicable diseases, everyone has the possibility of being infected. There's a constant possibility that various communicable diseases will enter a country, so responding calmly based on accurate information is extremely important.
Japan is in the midst of a national effort to deal with the threat posed by communicable diseases. And that's attracting the interest of the international community.
Efforts were being made in various places, but you could say they ended as just dots and lines. We want to expand that into a full-scale initiative involving the whole of Japan. We want to carry out this initiative properly.
In Japan, hand washing and gargling are the norm. Those practices have saved countless lives around the world. And in recent years, alcohol disinfectants have become a common sight in offices and public facilities. One company, Saraya, wants to make them more widely available. Since its establishment in 1950, it has been working in the public health field on measures to prevent the spread of communicable diseases.
We want to first promote health through hand washing. To take the Japanese practice of hand washing across the world, education is key. Education of children and of people in society. Sharing information too. That will become increasingly important.
It's believed that if the practices of hand washing and gargling become more widespread around the world, the lives of 1 million children can be saved. And in the fight against malaria, one of the big 3 communicable diseases, something used in Japan from long ago is said to be especially effective. Malaria is common in subtropical and tropical regions and is a communicable disease transmitted by mosquitoes. Effective in keeping away such mosquitoes are mosquito nets. Mosquito nets are supplied by international organizations such as the WHO and UNICEF to more than 80 countries around the world, helping to prevent infections among pregnant women and children. One medical equipment maker is hoping to contribute to malaria eradication through early detection of the disease. It has developed a new diagnostic device for that purpose. That company is Sysmex. Until now, diagnosis required researchers to look through microscopes and carry out genetic analyses. It required skilled technicians and a significant amount of time. The diagnostic equipment they developed changes that process in a big way.
With this device, all you have to do is put the blood collection tube on top of this platform and it'll take measurements fully automatic. It doesn't require any special skill, and the result will be the same whoever does the measuring. It'll detect the number of red blood cells infected with malaria and determine the type of malaria. The entire specimen analysis result will come out in a minute, so malaria infections can be detected rapidly, making early treatment possible.
They believe the device may not only lead to early detection of malaria infections and more efficient medical follow-ups, but also help accelerate development of medicines. Another of the 3 big infectious diseases, tuberculosis, was also a big topic at the conference. Tuberculosis kills 1.6 million people every year around the world, and it's said that 1/3 of the global population carries the tuberculosis bacteria. Japan has been working on measures to fight tuberculosis for many years, and Dr. Tadao Shimao of the Japan Anti-Tuberculosis Association says the country should take leadership in eradicating the disease.
The WHO says that in the next decade, it will work to reduce new tuberculosis infections every year by 10%. Japan is the only country with a large number of tuberculosis cases that's succeeded. So I believe Japan needs to apply that experience more in other countries.
In the field of tuberculosis as well, Japan's technical capabilities have been applied to the development of early detection diagnostic kits.
We developed a system under which 3 types of tests can be carried out for the same cost and at the same time. For example, there's one test to determine whether it's tuberculosis. Then, there's another test to determine whether a medicine is effective. And there's a test to determine what kind of bacteria is causing symptoms extremely similar to tuberculosis. These tests are all carried out separately and with a time lag. In our case, we've developed a system that allows us to easily check for all those factors with just one test.
In 2014, there was big news regarding the treatment of tuberculosis. A new drug developed by Otsuka Pharmaceutical of Japan was approved in Europe and Japan. It was the first time in 40 years that a tuberculosis drug received approval.
Pharmaceutical products are as difficult as launching rockets. The possibility that something ultimately becomes a product is 1 in 10,000. In spite of that, diseases like tuberculosis and malaria often affect less wealthy countries. So it's a field that pharmaceutical companies can't get involved in. There were certainly difficulties that they don't face in developing other drugs.
Companies face numerous hurdles and risks between developing a new drug and acquiring approval, including securing funding and finding qualified personnel. Multiple drug resistance refers to diseases such as tuberculosis becoming resistant to drugs, which lose their effectiveness. In order to prolong the effectiveness of the first new drug developed in 40 years, it's necessary to administer it properly.
We basically keep developing drugs. I mean, we're just going to also encounter more and more resistance. So you develop a drug, we'll get drug resistance. You develop another drug, we'll eventually get drug resistance. We will never ever be able to eliminate TB unless we actually come up with a new vaccine.
Countermeasures are being developed against antibiotic-resistant bacteria, the new threat posed by communicable diseases. Daiichi Sankyo, which has been working on vaccines, says Japan has unique attributes that allow it to make global contributions through vaccines.
Japan has developed various new drugs in the past. It has also developed vaccines ahead of the rest of the world that are now available and used internationally. It has a track record. If this vaccine is realized, there will no longer be people struggling with multi-drug resistance, of course, as well as bacterial infections or viral infections. They can all be prevented by the vaccine. That's what may become possible.
People around the world are fighting communicable diseases using various methods. To further crystallize these methods, a framework of cooperation that can overcome the walls of industry and special interests is said to be necessary. Shionogi has set up a consortium for that purpose.
It's quite difficult for one company to go about it alone. So, in that sense, we need to forge cooperative frameworks of various kinds involving industry, government, academia, and corporations as well. Otherwise, we won't be able to take on issues that entail global risk. As to what kinds of cooperative frameworks are needed, we need to innovate, but they are nevertheless extremely important.
What can Japan do to help fight communicable diseases that are threatening people's lives and livelihoods? A way forward, as well as issues, gradually came to light during discussions at the conference.
What were we doing on December 31st, 1999, the day before the year 2000? We were all dealing with the last 1 mile, the connectivity problem, telephone lines. And what about now? We have Wi-Fi. That's just in 15 years.
Japan's countermeasures for communicable diseases for the world are at the last 1 mile now. For Japan to cross this last mountain and take the initiative, it needs to bring the various forces together so that even stronger action can be taken.
Japan is lacking a bit of energy now. In the world, its presence is a bit weak. Every Japanese person wants Japan to become more energetic globally as well. Providing humanitarian help to other countries is one aspect, but Japan needs to deliver its powers for good to the world. That will make people around the world happy, and at the same time, Japanese companies will become economically stronger.
Communicable diseases are a problem that closes in the more people and things become interconnected. And countermeasures will continue to be forged as long as there are people suffering. Japan is being called on to lead the charge.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of Channel Japan. We have much more in store for you, so join us again next week.